Hi, my name is Mary, and tonight I'd like to talk about Uranus and Taurus. And I really want to thank Linda for inviting me to speak. Linda and I go back quite a few years now on a lot of different threads. So thanks, Linda. The Uranus ingress into Taurus is beginning on May 15th. And I'm thinking that anything goes, and the initiation of growth, movement, and change are inevitable. And there are just so many facets of astrology. I'm going to try my best today to focus on the chart that we have at hand. The chart is very busy, and I would like to talk about it. But first, let's just do some info about Uranus. Uranus is known as the blue planet, and the last ingress into Taurus was around the end of March 1935, and prior 1851, 1767, 1684, 1600, and 1515. There are retrograde periods back into Aries, and if you're interested when they occur, you can look them up in the ephemeris if you have an interest as when to those periods actually were. Uranus, the cycle is around 84 years through the signs of the zodiac and 7 years through each sign. So we all have Uranus transiting in one of our houses in our own personal chart. For you, it depends on where Taurus lies in your chart. Some key dates to look up significant times in history. In the US, we had the Dust Bowl, the Industrial Revolution, the start of the FCC, the Federal Trades Communication, which I find very interesting due to what's going on now with net neutrality and all the issues that are stemming up from that. Weather periodicals began to be published, and also the chemical element table was designed around this time, just to name a few points in history. If there's any significant dates in history that you're interested in, you may want to look them up to see if they occurred while Uranus was in Taurus. We as astrologers know history has a habit of repeating itself sometimes, and we can attribute that to the planetary cycles. Uranus transits have made it possible to take physical matter and transform it into something new. Uranus is now the newer ruler of Aquarius. It is about new ideas, innovation, freedom, and the individuated unconscious. Uranus can also represent shock, surprises, trauma, uncertainty, and unpredictable circumstances. Excuse me. It can also represent insight by reaching into our subconscious mind. Uranus also rules astrology. In evolutionary astrology, Uranus has been identified to be freedom from the known by Jeffrey Wolf Green. If we study evolutionary astrology, we do know there are what is known as evolutionary states of consciousness within us all. With Uranus in Taurus, I would like to read a short paragraph from Jeffrey's Pluto Volume 1 book about the archetype of Taurus. Relative to the revolutionary states, describes how this archetype can be defined. Quote, relative to physical survival, those individuals in a herd state evolutionary condition have learned to identify material values as a vehicle to self-sustainment. Others in the individuated evolutionary condition have learned to identify themselves as the resource creating the means to self-sustainment. Those in the spiritual or universal evolutionary condition have learned that source or universe provides that which they need in order to sustain themselves when one is receptive to that provision. They commonly isolate themselves from the environment and others to concentrate upon their relationship to Source. And let's just take a few minutes to think about those evolutionary states. Uranus transits may also be felt as a type of resistance. Jane Uvar described Uranus transits as a gradual process that recreates the old order. We are just entering the beginning of this cycle. In the first part of the cycle, we can experience confusion, as we can be feeling change being brought about upon us, which may not feel comfortable. This is the gestation of a 7-year period. We can think of it as air meeting earth. The Taurus archetype is fixed, earth, and with Uranus moving through it, it can possibly create a resistance for some. I think it's a very exciting time to be alive on the planet, and I think we will be all carrying a vast amount of information with us into our next lifetime. Based upon my experiences, I'm just feeling that many people are beginning to become awakened at a very rapid pace. And I'm seeing it more so than ever before. It could be those individuals who are living in individuated states of consciousness. They are becoming awake, but perhaps they do not know where to turn, and still seeking outside influences for comfort, rather than seeking solitude and beginning to draw upon and recognize source energy from within all of ourselves. During this transit, many of us could be going through a redefining and reorganization of our personal value systems, not based upon the conditioned beliefs that were created for us, Saturn, but what we feel personally is the right way to proceed, coming from our heart space and our own personal intuition, Uranus. Some are doing it at a very rapid pace, while others could be needing some more time. Reacting to current life situations by initiating change within one's own personal environment, perhaps reestablishing a reconnection with Gaia. I think we as humans strive for comfort and stability, whether we realize it or not. The natural instinct for survival is within all of us, but it may show on many different types of levels. Here in the chart, also the nodes of Uranus are in Gemini Sag right now, North Node Gemini, South Node Sag. And during the ingress, we've got 4 planets in the sign of Taurus, with Uranus at the midhaven. I think bringing nature and natural law into our own personal environment will be a very big player. Uranus can create havoc on the nervous system, especially if we are trying to accomplish too many things at one time from too many different standpoints. Sometimes by just intuitively tapping into the energies from external forces occurring around us can initiate a sense of restlessness within us. Rest can be very important to maintain awareness to the subtle changes occurring around us as the cycle begins. To be aware of the change could be the first step. Recognizing changes with a well-rested body and mind will give us all a better chance at survival during this transit. We have huge generalization differences on the planet due to all of the external influences that we as a collective have created and placed ourselves in. We have to realize there are now generations on this planet that did not exist before the internet became available for home use. Home use was around 1996, and Uranus was in Aquarius then. And these folks do not know existence without the internet. We need to keep in mind that the generations born into the technological age really do know nothing different. With Uranus and Taurus, I'm thinking we will begin to see a big change in this vehicle of communication. Because of the sudden desire by those who run things, need another facet for an outlet for them to place their control. Therefore, words and wires may not hold too much of any value. Also, we could see having the feeling of being connected, but still feeling of isolation. And I do think the rise of technology will grow even more rapidly, but a few facets of it may not be sustainable. Could the extensive use of internet be modifying our cognitive abilities? Well, that subject remains highly debatable. So maybe we all feel something is coming. Here in the US, but I think pretty much globally, this could be the first political, social, and economic crisis since around the 1930s. And the issues that are occurring in the world, I mean, in my opinion, they've always existed as far as politics, government, and the climate, to name a few. But without the internet, we never had the ability to be as broadly connected as we are now, making us aware of what takes place everywhere on the planet, not just our little circle of personal existence. We may have to ask, does the internet shape our view of our reality, or are we creating our own reality with source? What I think about this chart, there's a lot of great things in this chart. There's a lot of retrograde planets initiating into the gestation period of Uranus entering Taurus, giving us space to have some reflection time. So on the ingress, the Sabian symbol for 1 Taurus is a clear mountain stream. Purity, excellence, and immediate availability of the strength and power of being. Refreshment, self-sustainment. So this can reflect a bit on what I was talking about before. How do we create our own sustainment through the coming of change? Think of the clear mountain stream as our thought process during a time of many changes, staying rooted within while the changes occur around us. The Sun-Moon conjunction, 25 Taurus, a large, well-kept public park. Isn't our planet our public park? Social strength of collectivities, power of traditional culture, faithfulness to established achievements, immutability. Through this period, perhaps by merging different ideas of generations and cultures could bring about unique results to issues at hand here on the planet. We all have things to bring to the table. Taurus being the archetype of survival, pleasures of the world, and perhaps making the decision of being watched or becoming the watcher. Maybe this can be a time to redefine all of our relationships with the South Node in Aquarius and the 7th North Node in Leo, 1st house. Uranus is squaring the nodes. There could be a huge deciding factor when making decisions between what is good for oneself or what is good for everyone. Perhaps reflecting upon just how we perceive others and how we interact within all of our relationships. With Lilith and Vesta retrograde in the 5th house, I find it interesting how here in America, our youth are coming out, finding their voice, and taking their action on issues, especially on gun control, which is the big one right now here. The 6th house in this chart is very strong. We've got Pluto and Mars there. I don't think they'll take these issues and perhaps many others very lightly. They're learning how to discover and use their voice with the assistance of the elders' guidance. And they begin to question matters they have concern about. And they have the gift of being able to merge the internet with positive action here, right in the physical world. Pluto retrograde in the 6th house in Capricorn. Perhaps many of us will be taking a breather before moving ahead with new ways forward. New thoughts and ideas can be combined with careful planning. We've got Saturn, Pluto, Mars, and 2 asteroids transiting Capricorn. Capricorn, in my opinion, is the center of the bridge between the physical and non-physical development taking place here on the planet. On the astrological developmental wheel, the Capricorn archetype is in the beginning of the last quadrant. Here, this energy has to have the space to unfold within itself. The energy can be so contained or restrained, it may have a possibility to implode upon itself. Constantly being tested through life experience can be where learning how to effectively manage wisdom comes from. Saturn, where we have placed limitations on ourselves and others, in a disseminating trine to Uranus, this can be a time of releasing old boundaries as a collective. Black Moon Lilith in Capricorn, establishing creative ideas and putting them into action and seeing results. Pluto retrograde in the 6th house in a 1st quarter square to Uranus will require we reflect, reconstruct, and recognize our own personal limitations, where we feel power or powerlessness, perhaps becoming involved in situations where we will all be tested for our evolution to occur, either from an individual or collective perspective. I think this may play out more towards the collective, but it could also be our individual consciousness as well. Uranus bringing in the initiation of new ideas to the subconscious, but the struggle could be for those who do not respond to these transits in a positive fashion. New experiences and change could be brought upon us for our souls to evolve. With Uranus on the midheaven, change is coming, and the experiences could be coming at a very rapid pace. Pluto in Cap in the 6th, we will all be tested this time around, asking us to think long and hard before initiating anything in the physical. If we're spending time thinking about our plans and desires and goals, Uranus may bring to light if it has any value even before we try and manifest it. We may be beginning to honor our subconscious mind to receive answers as we begin to merge the physical world with our thoughts and desires. With Saturn in disseminating trine to Uranus, bringing innovation into manifestation to make improvement in our physical world, no matter how big or small, either individually or as part of the collective. By the use of objects from the physical world, such as aromatherapy, crystals, candles, color, and nature, these elements can be a grounding element to use as we merge with our subconscious. Metamorphosis could occur between matter and thought as we reestablish our own inner security while the change in the outer world is occurring. The change on the planet could be in the constant but subtle and sometimes sudden movement. Being prepared from within to accept and embrace change, we will need both physical and mental energy to maintain focus to stand within the changes that are coming. Many times if we feel out of sorts, could we be bringing the energy field from the external influences into our physical space? To remind ourselves of that each day can be very grounding. I think a new root race, a movement, or the merging of groups, call it whatever you want to call it, could be, beginning to emerge from within the collective. There could be masses rising up to implement and or resist change. With Chiron and Aries, that could play out as a display of anger through woundedness. In a new phase to Neptune, it may be important to have ambitions, desires, and goals clearly defined within ourselves and continue to remain open but focused. Hopefully we can do all this before Neptune gets into Aries, which I hope I can talk about sometime. The expansion of urban gardens will be on the rise, and the moving and the transformation of physical matter could be occurring in many different ways. Now, China is beginning to grow potatoes on the moon, a new way of innovation. Innovation in recycling will continue to expand. While new items could become available to help us adapt to climate and electromagnetic fields that I don't think are going to go away anytime soon. And I think the Pluto and Aquarius generation may not even know that a pen and pencil were used as writing implements at one time. Bringing the element of nature back to where it once lived, where man-made structures now stand, trying to merge the two elements together more and more. I think this will become very important to us through this transit due to the opposition of different perspectives regarding how to respect our planet. I'm thinking finances will continue to represent a source of power and security for some. And there could be sudden gains and losses, and also the redefining of currency as the cycle continues. Jupiter's retrograde in Scorpio, and it's a wide orb, but it's squaring the nodes with that interplay between 1 Leo and 7 Aquarius. The resolution node here is the North Node in Leo in the first. New ways of expressing self as part of the whole global family. This is an angular Jupiter skip step. With a disseminating trine to Neptune in Pisces, perhaps love and compassion could become the new religion, as this aspect is strong and this particular phase has been associated with society as a whole. But the change will have to come from the seed within all of us, and not from the representation of the information we are receiving from external sources. Pluto retrograde is balsamic to the North Node. Could we all be feeling the need for resolution? Perhaps Uranus bringing us to recall past lives where we experienced similar issues around crises as a collective? Uranus Mercury conjunction in a crescent square to the South Node, perhaps a recollection of trauma in our survival as a species. Chiron conjunct Juno in the 9th. Maybe the bringing about ancient crafts and healing arts could be brought to the forefront, but perhaps in new ways of using them. Thus again, perhaps newer generations learning techniques from nature and from our elders. Going back into the roots while branching out in new and innovative ways with these techniques. Perhaps there would be a very large concern between nature versus synthetic in many of our items we use. Perhaps a new recipe book is part of a new invention to be written. Sun, Moon, and Taurus in a new phase conjunction could be finding new ways of security both in the physical and our inner world. Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus, new phase, practicality through original ways of creating over extravagance. Saturn in Gibbous Sesqui Squadrate to the North Node in Leo could be reminding us to remain open to others as humans as a whole, rather than just thinking about self, and expand the mind to bring about positive change for the collective. What is it I can do to initiate change for the service to humanity, no matter how big or how small, and bring it into the world? Not just use it for myself. This gibbous phase is asking us to all integrate. The South Node is in a new phase to Neptune and in a crescent septile to Chiron. This is a great connection, I think, because in my mind it can be groups coming together during this time. And Neptune and Chiron could be big players in this new up-and-coming movement. Uranus Mercury, again, could bring about the seed thought of astrology coming to mainstream television. Or the commercialization of astrology. Is it sustainable? Or maybe astrology will gain the potential of being taken more seriously by those who wish to deny the capabilities it has. There are some interesting charts that I was looking at, but I don't have any birth times. One is a man named David Koch, and also Melania Trump. So here in this chart, to me, there are many underlying themes of security, family, protection, and the duality between self and others. Pluto in a disseminating trine to the sun, moving in a positive fashion as a collective, bringing our internalized thoughts out rather than basing our actions upon outer circumstances and appearances. To be moving from our core center rather than allowing external forces to move us. Uranus and Mars in a disseminating square. It may require those to seek change to establish themselves in a manner appropriate to the status quo. We got Mars in Capricorn over there, 29, critical degree. In order to become effective, not just acting out and rebelling against the establishment, an integration of oneself, although uncomfortable, and releasing any boundaries or judgments you may have put on others through conditioning. This could be a time of certain evolutionary states having great confusion in their daily lives and in how they view the world. With Uranus in Taurus, there could also be a rise on dirigibles and aircraft driven by technology without humans, more so than there already is. They could be flying in patterns we may not have seen yet, and it could create havoc on wildlife and buildings. I express a lot through poetry, as Linda knows, for many years, and I wrote a little poem just to read for one of the slides. There is no one religion or civilization that truly knows the truth of creation, merging nature of Gaia with nature of mind. The infinite circle is what we may find. Become wildly free in innovation, using kaleidoscopes of information. As the East meets the West, we may find some resistance as we call on our truths for guiding assistance. Religious, political, and economic beliefs, because of the great diversity among us, the only way out is to put aside our conditioning, and we all need to stay human. Now we'll just briefly take Uranus through the houses. Uranus through the first house is breaking out and finding new ways of self-expression. The second house the redefining of your value system, letting go of possessions. Uranus through the 3rd, becoming more open to different types of stimulus, promoting mental growth, perhaps frequent and unexpected short journeys. Through the 4th, your immediate surroundings and or emotional body could go through big changes. Through the 5th, innovation and creativity and sudden flashes of ideas could come up for creative use. 6th, change in the physical body, maybe sudden changes around the work you do for a living. Through the 7th, relationships of all kinds could be undergoing changes, and some could become unstable and unpredictable, either created by you or the other. Many facets in your life could suddenly change around shared resources, sex, and your personal psychology when Uranus transits the 8th house. Uranus through the 9th, new openings of reasoning toward your view of the world and your beliefs around areas of higher learning. Uranus through the 10th could be a new profession or the desire to do something different, or it could be a fall from grace. Through the 11th could be radical changes in your groups and associations, or possibly the need to rebel against groups and friends. Uranus through the 12th, the unconscious mind could come up quite frequently and unexpectedly. So during the ingress, Uranus will be in Taurus, also when Pluto enters Aquarius in 2024. Uranus will still be in a first quarter phase to Pluto. Right now, we are currently in the midst of a first quarter square. Jeffrey Wolf Green called this creative self-actualization. This is a yang phase, energy moving out from the center. This can be a time to remember we are all human, and we as incarnated souls are all equal, and we may all need to make some necessary adjustments for the up and coming future. And I thank you very much, and I wish everybody all the best through this transit while embracing change.
Great. That brings us to the end of your meeting, Mary. Thank you very much. That was really good. And would you all please thank Mary D, everybody?
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
That was great.
Good work.
Much, Mary.
Thanks, guys.
Well, nice to see you, Chuck.
Nice to
Excellent,
see you.
Mary.
Nice to see you.
See you next
Thank
time.
you.
Hey, bye. Bye.